The gravel crunched under tires I hadn't heard coming. Dust settled slow, like it knew something had shifted. She stepped out, city clean cutting through the hay-thick air, her scent sharp, something floral mixed with exhaust. My mornings were mine alone, fences stretching under endless sky, horses nickering soft in the quiet. Now this. Her temporary stay, just a month to find herself, they said. But isolation was my wall, built high from years of wind and work. One look at her and cracks formed. Days blurred into shared stalls, my old denim jacket her quiet claim on the routine. I woke before dawn, like always. The sky bruised purple outside the window, cool air slipping through the cracks in the cabin wall. Coffee brewed black in the pot, steam rising steady. I pulled on boots worn soft at the edges, laced them tight. The ranch waited. 50 acres of sagebrush and split rail, horses in the corral stamping against the chill. First came feeding. Hay bales heavy in my arms, flakes tossed into troughs. The gelding, Buck, nudged my shoulder, warm breath fogging the air. I ran a hand down his neck, felt the muscles shift under hide. Fences next. Wind tugged at my shirt as I walked the perimeter, wire cutters in my pocket. A post leaned loose from last week's storm, dirt soft around the base. I drove it deeper with the post driver, sweat beading despite the cold. The sky widened above, blue bleeding in from the east. This rhythm held me, predictable, solid. No room for more. The isolation suited. Neighbors miles off, family gone years back. Just me and the land, speaking in creaks and rustles. Her truck pulled up mid-morning, engine rumbling louder than it should in the quiet. I was at the barn, stacking feed sacks, when the dust cloud rolled in. She climbed out slow, bag slung over one shoulder. Dressed too neat, jeans pressed, boots shining new. City polish clashed with the mud churned by yesterday's rain, wind whipping her dark hair across her face. She scanned the yard, eyes wide like the place might swallow her whole. I straightened, wiped hands on my thighs. You the boarder? My voice came out flat, unused to company. She nodded, stepping closer. Yeah, Elena. Just for a bit. Heard this place was quiet. Quiet. I almost laughed. The wind howled through the corrals, chickens scratching in the dirt. Stalls are that way. I pointed toward the barn, red paint peeling. Horses need mucking daily. You good with that? Her hesitation hung. I've never done it. But I can learn. City hands, I figured. Soft from desks and traffic. Follow me then. Inside the barn, light slanted through cracks, hay dust dancing. I showed her the pitchfork, how to scoop the soiled bedding, toss it to the pile outside. She gripped the handle awkward at first, arms straining. Questions came hesitant. How deep to go, what the horses ate. I answered short, watching her move. The wind picked up outside, chill seeping in. You're freezing, I said, noticing her shiver. Here. I shrugged off my old denim jacket, faded blue, sleeves frayed from years of work. It hung heavy on the hook by the door. Take it, warmer than nothing. She paused, then slipped it on. Fabric swallowed her frame, shoulders swimming loose, hem brushing her thighs. It looked right and wrong. My scent clinging to the lining, her slighter build filling it out. She tugged the collar close. Thanks. Smells like earth. I turned back to the stalls, pulse steady. But her hands caught me. Soft, unscarred, nails trimmed clean. No calluses from rope or rain. They stirred something unspoken, a curiosity I pushed down. Why notice? Temporary, that's all. Days started blending. Mornings, I'd find her at the barn before I finished coffee. Jacket already on. Sleeves rolled to her elbows. She'd nod when I arrived, pitchfork in hand, and would work side by side. The routine pulled, despite the distance I kept. Her questions faded to fewer words, but the air between us thickened, like dust after a truck passes. Horses watched us, tails swishing lazy. I wondered how long before the quiet broke her, or me. She adapted quicker than I thought. One morning, she had Buck's stall half cleared, straw flying even. Like this? She asked, wiping her brow. I nodded. Yeah, steady.
The jacket stayed on her through it all, a silent anchor.
My walls held, but the routine shifted. Mornings no longer mine alone. Distance lingered, but closer now. Inevitable. Morning settled into a pattern. Dawn cracked the sky, and I'd head to the barn, boots thudding on packed dirt. Elena was there most days now, pitchfork in hand, straw already flying from the stalls. The scraping sounds filled the air, metal tines against wood, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Sweat beaded on my skin early, mixing with the earth's damp scent, hay dust clinging to everything. She worked without complaint. No city gripes about the mess or the cold, just steady motion, learning the ropes as we went. Toss it wide, I'd say, showing how to spread fresh bedding even. She'd mimic, arms gaining strength, her form settling into the task. Surprise hit me quiet. I expected hesitation, but she pushed through, face set like she was proving something to herself. The jacket became part of it. Sleeves rolled to her elbows, exposing wrists pale against the faded denim. The collar brushed her neck when she bent low, fabric shifting like a claim I hadn't made. It hung loose on her, but she wore it constant, through the chill mornings and warmer afternoons. My old thing, now hers in the routine. I caught the scent sometimes, my soap mixed with her sweat, earth binding us closer than words. Glances stole in. I look up from my stall, see her wiping her brow with the back of her hand, sleeve slipping down. Vulnerability showed there, in the quick breath, the way her shoulders slumped just a beat before straightening. Posture soft in the labor, unguarded. My eyes lingered too long once, pulse quickening in the silence between scrapes. Why? The barn felt smaller then, air thick with unspoken weight. Body betrayed me in those quiets. Heart thudded harder when our pitchforks crossed paths, hands brushing accidental over a bale. I'd pull back sharp, focus on the horses instead, Buck's flank twitching as I checked his water. But the pulse stayed, a drum in my chest. Isolation had been safe, walls high from years alone. Now her presence chipped at them, routine weaving her in. One day, she paused mid-scoop, straw halfway to the pile. This place, it quiets the noise in my head. Her voice low, not looking at me. I nodded, said nothing. Inside, storm brewed. Desire flickered against the ranch's hold, wind-scoured fences, endless sky demanding solitude. But her competence pulled. Silence is loaded now. We finished Buck's stall together that afternoon. She leaned the pitchfork against the wall, jacket unzipped, collar open. Sweat traced her collarbone, vulnerability raw. I turned away, busied with the next horse. Pulse raced again, body heavy with what I wouldn't name. The routine held us, but cracks formed in the quiet. Small mishaps started then. A loose board in the floor caught her boot one morning, pitchfork clattering. She stumbled, caught herself on the wall. I was there quick, hand steadying her arm. Touch lingered a second too long, warmth through the jacket sleeve. Careful, I muttered, pulling back. Her eyes met mine, grateful flicker. Reliance crept in, walls shifting. Another time, a bale tipped wrong, hay spilling across the aisle. We shoveled it side by side, shoulders nearly brushing. Her laugh came soft, first I'd heard, dry, like surprise at herself. City girl fails. I shook my head. You're holding up. The air thickened after, silence is deeper. My pulse betrayed again, quick in the chest. Why notice her laugh? The ranch demanded focus, but she disrupted, pulling me closer despite the distance I tried to keep. By week's end, the routine felt shared. Morning started with her truck's rumble, jacket waiting on the hook like an invitation. We'd muck in tandem, scrapes echoing, sweat blending with dust. Her competence grew, no complaints, just steady work. But glances piled, her wiping sweat, posture softening in fatigue. Internal pull strengthened, body reacting in silences, heart thudding against isolation's weight. A gate latch stuck that Friday, wire snagging her sleeve as she tried to fix it. I stepped in, tools in hand, our fingers brushing over the metal. She didn't pull away fast. "Thanks," she said, voice quiet. The touch echoed later, alone in the cabin. Walls cracked wider, reliance forcing cracks. Small mishaps bound us, routine no longer solitary. Tension lingered, waiting for the next break. Clouds gathered heavy that afternoon, sky turning slate gray over the ridges. Wind picked up sharp, rattling the barn doors like a warning. I was out checking the corral when the first drops hit, fat and cold against my skin. Elena emerged from the cabin, jacket zipped tight, heading my way with a determined stride. Work delayed, but hay needed securing before the downpour turned it to mush. "Storm's coming fast," I called over the rising gust. She nodded, eyes on the dark horizon. "What now?" We moved quick to the loft, pitchforks in hand. Thunder rumbled low, vibrating through the beams. The air thickened with ozone, sharp against the usual hay scent. I climbed the ladder first, her steps close behind, boots thudding on rungs. Up top, bales stacked haphazard, we started shifting them toward the back wall, away from the open loft door. Our arms brushed in the tight space, sweat already beating despite the chill. Thunder masked our breaths, heavy and uneven, as we heaved the first bale into place. Rain hammered the tin roof, sudden, a roar that drowned everything. Water sheeted down outside, turning the yard to mud. The barn felt smaller, walls closing in with the storm's weight. Elena gripped a bale tight, muscles straining under the jacket. I watched her a beat too long, the way her hair stuck damp to her neck. Proximity hit hard. Her shoulder inches from mine, the heat of her body cutting the cold draft. We worked in rhythm, silent but synced, thunder punctuating each lift. She reached for the next bale, foot slipping on a slick board wet from a leak. The loft floor tilted under her, pitchfork clattering. Time slowed. I lunged, arm wrapping her waist, pulling her back from the edge. Her body pressed against mine, solid and warm, breath catching sharp. We steadied together, my grip lingering on her side, fingers pressing through the denim. Jacket fabric damp now, clinging to her curves where rain had seeped in. She turned in my hold, eyes wide, meeting mine close. Gratitude flickered there, raw and unguarded, like a crack in her city shell. I released slow, hand trailing her arm before dropping. "You okay?" Voice rough over the rain's drum. She nodded, cheeks flushed, jacket zipper glinting wet. "Yeah, thanks to you." The words hung, thunder rolling under them. Heat rose in my chest, not from the work, rain slicking our skin. Unspoken pull tightened, her nearness stirring questions I wouldn't voice. Why did her eyes hold like that? What was this warmth coiling low? The storm raged on, masking the thud of my heart. We finished the hay in silence, backs to the wall, breath sinking with the gusts. Water dripped from the eaves, pooling at our feet. Her jacket clung heavier, outlining her frame in ways that pulled my gaze. I busied with a loose strap, but the air hummed, charged like before lightning. Proximity lingered, bodies close in the dim loft light filtering through cracks. She shifted, shoulder brushing mine accidental, sending a jolt. I stepped back, pretending to check the bales. Internal storm matched the one outside. Desire flickering against isolation's pull, rain blurring the lines. Thunder cracked again, closer, shaking dust from the rafters. Elena flinched, slight, hand reaching out, grazing my sleeve. Touch electric, brief. She pulled back quick, eyes dropping to the floor. Never seen a storm like this. Her voice soft, almost lost in the roar. I swallowed, nodded. They pass, but they leave things changed. Words meant more than weather, hanging between us. Questions formed unasked, about her stay, the city she'd fled, the way her presence disrupted my quiet. Heat built in the space, rain's chill no match. The loft grew stuffy, our clothes damp, breaths visible in the cooling air. I wanted to say something, break the weight, but silence held. Her eyes met mine again, grateful depth pulling deeper. Jacket sagged wet on her shoulders, vulnerability exposed in the cling. My pulse raced, body aware of every inch between us. The storm pressed us closer, no escape in the narrow space. Why did saving her feel like saving myself? The pull strengthened, unspoken, rain pounding relentless. Finally, thunder eased, rain lightening to a steady patter. We climbed down slow, mud sucking at boots in the yard. Clear skies would return by morning, but tension clung like mist rolling off the hills. I glanced back at the barn, her silhouette in the door, jacket dark with wet. The crack had formed, proximity shattering routine's edge. Walls shifted, questions brewing in the quiet aftermath. Isolation felt thinner now, her presence a storm that wouldn't pass easy. Weeks dragged under the relentless sun, sky a bleached bowl overhead. The storm had passed, leaving air thick with heat, dust rising in puffs from every step. Fencing repairs took us out daily now, wire glinting sharp against the sagebrush. I drove posts deeper into cracked earth, mallet thudding heavy in my hands. Elena followed with the roll, unspooling it steady, her shadow stretching long beside mine. Sweat soaked our shirts, salt stinging eyes. The ranch demanded it. Boundaries, literal and not, stretching miles under that unyielding light. She wore the jacket without asking anymore. A ritual formed quiet, like the dawn's first light. Mornings, I'd find it on the hook, her slipping it on as we headed out. Faded denim against the sun's glare, sleeves rolled high, exposing arms tanned now from the work. It hung loose still, but fit her better in the motion. Collar framing her neck, a quiet intimacy I hadn't offered. My old thing, marked by years of sweat and wind, now carried her scent too. Floral, faint under the earth, binding us in the heat. Conversations crept in slow, words traded between hammer strikes. One afternoon, wire taut between posts, she paused, wiping her brow. City was noise. Horns, lights never off. I escaped it, needed space to breathe. Her voice low, eyes on the horizon. I drove another post, felt the vibration up my arm. This place roots you. Can't run from the sky here. She nodded, twisting the wire tight. Roots sound good. Mine got tangled back there. Stories unfolded in fragments. Her job lost to cutbacks, family distant in high-rises. I shared less, but enough. Folks gone early, ranch my anchor since. The sun beat down, but silences between held warmer now, words bridging the gap. Physical brushes multiplied. Passing the pliers, our fingers grazed, metal cold against skin's heat. Shoulders nearly touched as we knelt to staple wire low, breath sinking in the crouch. Once, reaching for the same post, her arm pressed mine brief, solid through the jacket. I pulled back sharp, pulse jumping like a spooked horse. The ranch's isolation clawed back, fences to mend, acres empty, no one to see. But desire wrestled in, a storm building internal. Why did her touch linger like that? Body heated beyond the sun, chest tight in the quiet. Nights alone, I'd trace the day's echoes, walls feeling thinner. Heat shimmered off the ground that week, mirages dancing on the dirt road. We worked the north fence, Elena hammering now, mallet swinging sure. You're getting the hang, I said, unrolling more wire. She smiled, faint, sweat tracing her jaw. Feels right, like I was meant for this. The jacket shifted with her swing, fabric pulling taut across her back. Intimacy in the wear, unspoken claim. Conversation turned deeper then. Her escape, not just city, but a love gone sour, promises broken in concrete. Left without looking back. I nodded, shared my own silence. Years of solitude after loss, ranch a shield. Sun dipped lower, shadows lengthening our words. Brushes came unbidden. Tools passed hand to hand, knuckles brushing soft. Shoulders bumped in the narrow shade of a lone pine. her laugh dry at a snagged wire. Stubborn as me. Pulse raced each time, desire coiling against the isolation's pull. The ranch held me, wind-scoured posts, endless labor, but she disrupted, nearness a constant tug. Internal storm raged quiet. Want, her voice filling the cabin, her hands on mine beyond work. But fear anchored. Temporary, they'd said. What if she left, taking the cracks wider? By fence's end, sun low and red, we sat on a log, water canteen shared. Her shoulder inches from mine, jacket unzipped, warmth radiating. This life's simpler, she murmured. I agreed, words sticking. Desire thrummed, wrestling the solitude I'd built. The air thickened, rushes of the day replaying. Why fight it? The ranch whispered no, but my body said yes. Transition came sudden next day. Chores in the corral, Elena wrestling a gate hinge rusted tight. Wire snapped back, slicing her palm shallow but sure. Blood welled quick, her hiss cutting the air. I dropped the bucket, grabbed her hand. Hold still. Dim barn light as I led her inside, boundaries blurring in the rush. The barn smelled of oiled leather and fresh blood, dim light filtering through a high window. Elena's hand trembled in mine, palm upturned, the cut a thin red line across her skin. Wire had bitten clean, not deep, but enough to sting. I grabbed the rag from the workbench, clean enough, and pressed it firm. Keep pressure, I said, voice steady despite the heat rising in my chest. She winced, body tensing, then stilled as I bound it tight with strips from an old shirt. Her eyes locked on mine, close in the low light, breath shallow. Flinch faded to quiet hold. Her fingers shifted, not pulling away, tracing a scar on my hand, old from a barbed fence years back, ridged white against tanned skin. Touch light, like testing water's edge. This from here? She asked, voice soft. I nodded, pulse jumping under her fingertip. Long time ago. Teaches caution. Her trace lingered, warmth spreading up my arm, unspoken current humming. Why did her touch feel like that? Boundaries blurred further, the rag's knot pulling us nearer in the dim. We stepped out after, sun low, chores done for the day. Air cooled, wind whispering through the cottonwoods. Elena shrugged off the jacket, heat of work lingering, but I saw the chill bite. Here, I said, draping it over her shoulders without thought. Fabric settled heavy, my warmth shared through the denim. She pulled it close, collar brushing her jaw, eyes meeting mine grateful again. Feels like home already. Words hung simple but weighted. We walked back slow, her shoulder grazing mine occasional, jacket sleeves swinging loose. Warmth lingered in the air between, not just from the cloth. Nights turned to fire talks after that. Cabin hearth crackled, flames dancing shadows on log walls. I'd stoke it with split pine, sparks rising like questions. Elena sat close on the worn rug, knees drawn, jacket folded beside her like a sentinel. Stories spilled then, lost homes weaving through the smoke. City swallowed mine, she said one evening, staring into the orange glow. Apartment too small, job grinding slow. Left a partner who never saw me. Her voice cracked faint, unspoken longings threading the words. Want for roots, for someone steady. I poked the fire, embers shifting. Ranch took mine early. Folks gone, left me this. Shared fragments, my solitude a choice after hurt, her escape a run from chains. Fire popped, air thickening with her nearness, scent of pine and her skin mixing. Another night, logs settling to coals, she leaned closer. What do you long for in all this quiet? Question direct, eyes unflinching. Heart thudded heavy, sensory weight pressing, her knee inches from mine, warmth radiating like the fire's last heat. I swallowed, words sticking. Someone who stays, who sees the work, not just the land. Unspoken pulls surfaced, longings mirroring in the flicker. Air grew dense, breaths sinking slow. Her hand brushed my arm accidental, fingers lingering near the scar she'd traced. Thud in my chest echoed the settling wood, desire coiling tight against the night's chill.
Talks deepened over weeks. Fire our anchor.
One storm threat evening, rain pattering the roof, she shared more. Family calls pulling her back, city lights calling loud. But here feels real. Jacket back on her then, zipped against the draft, my warmth a shield. I nodded, heart racing quiet. Real's hard to leave. Longings hung unvoiced, want her hand in mine beyond the rag, her stories filling the cabin permanent. Sensory press built, her laugh dry at a tale of lost calves, air heavy with nearness, pulse thudding like distant thunder. By fire's end one night, embers low, she turned full. You've shown me this life. Eyes held mine, longings bare. I felt the weight, her breath warm, jacket's fabric brushing my knee as she shifted. Heart hammered, unspoken truths thickening the smoke. Why did nearness ache like that? The ranch's isolation cracked wider, her presence a fire I couldn't bank. Community pressure mounted next morning. Neighbor's truck rumbled up early, dust trailing, eyes sharp on Elena's truck parked close. Whispers started then, forcing glances hidden in the stalls, boundaries tested anew. Neighbor's truck rumbled up that morning, engine coughing like a bad cough in the dust. Old man Harlan, face weathered deeper than fence cracks, climbed out slow, eyes narrowing on Elena's truck parked too close to the cabin. He'd come for eggs, he said, but lingered by the coop, glancing toward the barn where we worked. Whispers started soon after, ranch talk spreading like dry grass fire. City girls taking up space, I overheard at the feed store later, voices low over sacks of grain. What's a woman like that doing out here with you? Eyes followed us now, neighbors nodding tight when Elena passed, their stares heavy as summer heat. The border's stay drew them out, curiosity twisting to judgment in the wide-open miles. Family weight pressed harder, too. Aunt Clara called that afternoon, voice tinny through the cabin phone, her questions sharp as wire barbs. Heard you've got company. That steady hand of yours, don't let it slip for some drifter. She'd raised me after the folks left. Expected the ranch run solo, no distractions in the isolation. My role as the fixer, the one who mended without breaking, got questioned now. You're all we've got left, she said, words landing like stones in still water. I hung up, staring at the receiver, chest tight. Elena's presence challenged that. My solitude not just choice, but duty. The land demanded steady, no room for what stirred inside. But her truck in the yard mocked it, pulling the family's gaze from town. Elena's phone calls echoed the pull. Evenings, I'd hear her voice from the porch, low and edged with city static. Mom, it's not forever. Just need time. Pauses long, her face tightening under the fading light. The city tugged. Jobs waiting, friends in high-rises. Life she'd fled but couldn't shake. Ranch held counter, wind scoured and real, but isolation amplified the call's weight. She'd hang up, eyes distant, jacket zipped tight like armor. They don't get this, she'd mutter, not looking at me. The divide grew, her world pulling versus the acres rooting her here. My pulse quickened, watching, fear she'd heed the voices, leave the quiet for noise. The jacket became her shield then. During Harlan's next visit, bringing wire from town, she slipped it on quick, fabric pulled close as we loaded the truck. Sleeves tugged down over hands, collar high against the chill wind carrying his stares. It hung heavier in those moments, my old denim a barrier against prying eyes. She'd wear it tighter at the fence line, when neighbors drove by slow, engines idling like accusations. Keeps the cold out, she'd say, but I saw the way it steadied her, our shared thing warding off the whispers. Intimacy hidden in the wear, but pressure made it a secret too. Quiet rebellion grew in the stalls. We'd steal moments there, away from the road's view, mucking side by side, pitchforks scraping soft. One afternoon, Harlan's dust still settling from his pass, she leaned close over a bale, shoulder brushing mine. Ignore them, she whispered, eyes flashing defiant. Laughter bubbled low, dry as sage, when a chicken scratched near, scattering feed. Our hands met passing the shovel, lingering, brief. Judgment evaded in the dim light. Stalls became refuge, stolen touches and shared glances weaving against the outside weight. Horses stamped approval, tails swishing lazy. The rebellion pulled us nearer, whispers outside no match for the air thickening inside.
But pressure built relentless.
Another call that night, Elena pacing the porch, voice rising sharp. I can't just stay forever. City won ground, isolation echoing her words back hollow. I watched from the door, jacket forgotten on the hook, heart thudding against the ranch's hold. Neighbors' eyes, family's duty, her world's tug, all closing in. Quiet rebellion held, but cracks widened under the weight. Vulnerability peaked that solitary evening, sun dipping red behind the ridges. She sat alone on the steps after hanging up, knees drawn, silence heavy as dusk. Words waited there, unspoken in the cooling air, pulling me toward the edge.
I tried pulling back after that evening.
The sun had dipped, leaving the steps cold under her, knees drawn tight like she was holding herself together. I stood in the doorframe, words stuck, then turned inside without speaking. Distance seemed safest. Rebuild the walls before they crumbled full. Next morning, I rose earlier, boots on before dawn cracked the sky. Headed to the corral alone, wire cutters in hand, mending a sagging section by the creek. The metal bit cold into my palms, earth soft from night dew. No shared tasks, I told myself. Let the routine snap back solitary. But ache followed quick, a hollow in my chest echoing the wind through empty acres. Her truck sat quiet in the yard, but I felt her absence like a loose post, unsteady.
She pursued unprompted by noon.
I was knee-deep in the creek, pulling weeds from the water trough, when her shadow fell long across the bank. Need a hand? Voice steady, jacket slung over her arm like an afterthought. I straightened, water dripping from my sleeves, pulse jumping despite the chill. Got it. Short, clipped. But she knelt anyway, sleeves rolled, hands plunging into the muck beside mine. Weeds tangled between us, her fingers brushing mine under the surface. Accidental, but electric. Silence stretched, broken only by the splash. Ache deepened, distance failing already. Why couldn't I send her off? The ranch needed focus, not this pull.
Jacket returned then, draped over the fence post as we finished.
Yours, she said, eyes meeting mine brief, like testing. Fabric still warm from her, scent clinging, earth and that faint floral. I nodded, took it, but the weight lingered heavier. Afternoon brought horse grooming, Buck in the cross ties, currycomb scraping dirt from his coat in circles. I worked his flank steady, bristles rasping soft. Elena appeared again, unasked, brush in hand for his mane. Let me. Pursuit quiet but firm. We stood close, shoulders inches apart, the horse's warmth between us. Her hand reached for a tangle, fingers grazing my wrist as she took the comb. Restraint cracked there, touch sparking heat up my arm, breath catching sharp. Buck stamped, but I retreated first, stepping back to the tack room. I'll finish later, voice rough, heart thudding against ribs. Failed hold, the spark lingering like burrs in wool. Emotional reveal came that dusk, barn shadows lengthening across the aisle. She cornered me by the feed bins, jacket reclaimed now, zipped halfway like armor half shed. You're avoiding me. Direct, eyes unflinching in the fading light. I busied with a scoop, grain rattling. Just work, lie thin as dust. She stepped closer, air thickening with hay and tension. I'm scared of leaving. City calls, but this, hand gestured the stalls, us. Feels like starting over. What if I go and regret? Fear bare in her voice, mirroring my silence. My own dread of empty mornings, her truck gone, routine hollow again. I set the scoop down, words failing. Staying's risk too. Mirrored quiet, our fears sinking like breaths in wind. Why echo her so? The reveal hung, pulling deeper, walls no barrier. Stakes escalated after. Body language betrayed us relentless. glances lingering in the corral, her wiping sweat with a sleeve that brushed too close. My hand steadying a saddle horn when she reached, same time. Nights turned restless, cabin creaking under stars, sleep fleeing as echoes replayed. Her fingers in the creek, spark on my wrist, fear voiced low. I'd rise, pace the porch, wind cool but chest hot with want. Distance attempts crumbled daily, her pursuit weaving tighter, jacket passing hand to hand like a tether. Ache built constant, body leaning despite mind's push. Why did her nearness feel inevitable now? Isolation mocked, the ranch's quiet amplifying every unspoken beat. One evening, she returned the jacket again, folding it neat on the steps. Take it back, or don't. Challenge in her eyes, pursuit turning bold. I slipped it on, fabric warm, her scent wrapping close. Restraint failed full then, hand brushing hers as I took it, lingering deliberate. Pulse raced, the trail clear in the hold. Nights worsened, dreams tangled with her touch, waking sweat damp to empty dark. Stakes climbed, body language a language of its own, shoulders turning toward her unbidden, steps sinking in the yard. Crisis hit next dawn. Calving season struck early, a heifer down in the pasture, labor stalled under gray sky. I found her struggling, mud caking flanks, but Elena was there already, truck idling close, hands pressing the cow's side unprompted. Exhaustion bound us, no escape in the labor's pull, confrontation forced as we worked to save the calf together. Dawn broke gray and heavy, the air thick with the scent of wet earth from overnight rain. Calving had hit like a freight train, 3 heifers down in the lower pasture, mud sucking at our boots as we worked through the night. The last calf came stubborn, slick and fighting, Elena's hands steady on the cow's flank while I pulled, ropes biting into my palms. Exhaustion settled deep by sunrise, bones aching like they'd been hauled through the creek. But stalls waited, overflow from days ignored, soiled bedding piled high, horses stamping restless in the dim barn. We trudged back, her truck trailing mine, no words in the cab's quiet rumble. The workload bound us tighter, no space for distance now. Inside the barn, light slanted weak through cracks, dust motes hanging like unspoken regrets. Pitchforks scraped heavy, straw matted thick underfoot, the overflow spilling into the aisle. Sweat beaded fresh despite the chill, mixing with mud streaks on our arms. Elena worked beside me, sleeves pushed high, breaths coming ragged. We can't keep this up alone, she said finally, tossing a load to the pile outside. Initiative sparked in her eyes, voice cutting the scrape of tines. Your help, it's more than chores. You've shown me the ranch, the real parts. What if it extended, stayed? I paused, fork midair, heart thudding against ribs worn thin from the pull. Heat built in the close space, sun climbing outside, turning the air stuffy. She shrugged off the jacket then, heat winning, letting it slide from her shoulders to the hay bale behind. Vulnerability exposed raw, shirt clinging damp to her skin, outline of her frame clear in the dim, no barrier left. The denim pooled there, faded blue against gold straw, my old claim discarded like a shed skin. Her arms flexed as she scooped again, unscarred hands now calloused faint, but the slip bared more, shoulders bared to the light, neck arched in effort. Pulse raced in my throat, eyes tracing the line of her collarbone, the way exhaustion softened her edges. She straightened, wiping her face, eyes locking mine direct. Stay with me. Break the temporary. Question hung simple, but weighted like the heaviest bale, voice low over the horse's knickers. City gone, ranch pulling, her stay no longer month-bound, but woven permanent. I see it in you, too. The quiet doesn't have to be alone. Words landed solid, stirring the air between us, thick as the overflow we'd cleared. Jacket forgotten on the bale, her nearness pressed close, heat radiating off her skin like fire's embers. Hesitation gripped me hard. Internal war tore quiet, fear clawing from years of isolation, ranch my shield against loss, folks gone leaving acres empty. What if she stayed and the whispers won? Neighbors' eyes, families' calls, the land's demand for steady solo work. But the pull countered fierce, body leaning unbidden, heart thudding with her rhythm. Her eyes held unflinching, vulnerability mirroring my cracks, the slip of jacket a sign, barriers down, intimacy offered raw. Why fight? The warmth coiling low, her hands that traced my scars, the routine now ours. Fear whispered retreat, but desire rooted deeper, like fence posts driven true. I set the fork down, hands trembling faint, mud flaking to the floor. Staying means roots, real ones. Voice rough, testing. She stepped closer, shoulder brushing mine, no pull away. I'm ready. Are you? The question echoed internal, war raging in the thud of my chest, fear versus the ache of her nearness. Jacket lay there, symbol slipping, vulnerability pulling me toward yes. We finished the stalls in silence after, exhaustion binding tighter, words waiting in the scrapes and tosses. Sun climbed higher, heat pressing the barn's walls. Decision hung heavy as the cleared aisle, air charged with what came next. Resolution built slow in the quiet aftermath, her glance over her shoulder as we stepped out. Jacket reclaimed but unzipped. The ask lingering like mist off the hills. Sunlight slanted sharp across the yard as we stepped out, mist curling off the damp earth like breath from a sleeping horse. Elena's glance held mine a beat longer, the ask still vibrating in the air between us. Jacket unzipped now, hanging open on her frame, sleeves swaying with her steps. I stopped by the fence, wood rough under my palms, heart thudding steady against the posts I'd driven myself. Fear clawed one last time. Roots meant risk. The ranch's wide sky no shield from hurt. But her eyes pulled, unflinching, mirroring the want I'd buried under years of solitude. Hands clasped then, simple as passing a tool, but deliberate. Her fingers slid into mine, warm and calloused now from weeks of wire and hay, gripping firm. Tension released in that hold, coiling out like a rope uncoiling slow. I pulled her close, arms wrapping her waist, her body fitting against mine solid in the morning light. Embrace tightened, breaths sinking ragged, the world narrowing to the press of denim and skin. Her head tucked under my chin, hair brushing my neck, scent of earth and faint floral rising sharp. No words needed. The pull we'd danced around finally met, heat blooming deep in my chest, walls crumbling full in the quiet yard. We stood there long, wind whispering through the sage, horses nickering distant from the corral. Shared future glimpsed in fragments. Her truck no longer temporary, parked permanent by the cabin. Mornings mucking side by side, pitchforks scraping in tandem. Evenings by the fire, stories weaving tighter than fence wire. Ranch life shifted, her presence threading through the acres. Fences mended together under relentless sun, storms faced in the loft's close hold. Isolation traded for this warmth. I saw it clear, her hands on Buck's reins, learning the ranch's rhythm. Nights with her laughed dry against the cabin walls, longings voiced no longer unspoken. The land rooted us both now, her city escape blooming into permanence, my solitude filled with her steady steps. Jacket's end came soft that afternoon. We hung it on the hook together, her fingers brushing mine as we folded it neat, fabric heavy with our shared sweat and scent. No longer borrowed, but ours. Faded blue symbol of chosen roots, sleeves frayed from work we'd claimed joint. She zipped it halfway, collar framing her neck like a vow, then left it there, a sentinel for the life unfolding. Vulnerability lingered in the fold, barriers shed like old hide. Intimacy woven permanent in the denim's weave. Emotional payoff settled deep as dusk fell. Silence spoke truth then, no need for grand declarations. The quiet between us louder than thunder, walls fully down in the hearth's glow. We sat close on the rug, knees touching, fire crackling low. Her hand found mine again, tracing the scar without question. Warmth spreading like embers through my veins, heart thudded content, desire no longer wrestling isolation, but nestled in it. Why had I fought? The ranch whispered approval. Wind settling soft outside, her nearness a home I'd built without knowing. Final image burned clear next morning. Stalls mucked side by side, pitchfork scraping even, sweat mixing with earth under the wide sky. Horizon stretched endless, blue bleeding to gold, her shoulder brushing mine in the rhythm. Jacket on the hook, waiting for the chill, our hands calloused, matching now. The routine held us, no longer disrupted, but whole, roots driven deep, future open as the land.
The cabin door clicked shut behind us. New beginnings sealed. No turning back now. If this quiet truth resonates, share your story below. Subscribe for more tales of finding home in unexpected places.